simplify is the first step in any of these interactions that we're going to have and any of these tasks that come your way. And there's two main things that I want to talk about when it comes to simplification. One is straight up simplifying. We want to break things down into their most bite-sized chunks so that they're much more manageable. And then the other one is about how we make effective decisions. But I'll get to that in a minute. A lot of times we look at projects, tasks, chores, to-dos, whatever it might be, and we create this bucket that is just too big, right? So like a really good example is you have some big project that is due in 2 weeks. And in your mind, and maybe on your to-do list or whatever planner you might be using, you have this big project. Maybe it doesn't actually say big project, but that's how we look at it. And our brains see that and it's just overwhelming. And then that leads to procrastination, and then all sorts of other problems come from that. But if we could just simplify things, break things down, make them simpler, bite-sized chunks as much as possible, it becomes a lot more manageable. And one like a really good example is you think about that classic image of like the big temple at the top of 1,000 steps, right? And you're at the bottom looking up at the temple, and you just see this temple that's so far up, and it just seems so impossible to get to. But what we really need to be doing is just looking right down at the first 2 steps and taking it 2 steps at a time. So eventually you can learn how to do this as just sort of a natural skill. But in the meantime, there's a really cool tool that I want to show you called Magic To Do from a website called Goblin Tools that will break it down for you. And what I love about this is that it allows you to choose how much you want to break things down. So let's say you have to do a 10-page book report on The Great Gatsby, right? And then we choose the level we want to break down. I'm going to go all the way up, right? We want it broken down as much as possible. So I'm going to make that a to-do. And then I'm going to do this and break down the item. And it's going to do its magic. So now it's broken this down. And this is, again, we chose the maximum amount of breaking down. But I mean, this has turned one task, one project into something like 40 manageable tasks. And again, that may seem excessive. But if you think about this in really practical terms, right? The idea of like 10-page book report. Where do I start? Like, oh God, and then you get overwhelmed and you just don't want to do it. So this breaks it down a lot, right? So pick a comfortable and quiet place to work. Okay, sure, good. Let's get started with that. Gather all necessary materials, open a new document. We get down here, write the title, book report, right? So this is walking you through it step by step. And each of these tasks might take you 5 seconds. Doesn't matter. But this gives you a roadmap now. And again, while this may seem like, oh, now this is so many more things, it's really not, right? It ultimately all adds up to this big report. And if you just keep going now and just keep going step by step, you're going to get there a lot faster than you might have otherwise. And what's also cool with this tool is you can continue to break things down further. So now we get down to this one, analyze the character of Jake Gatsby. So let's break that down even further. And it's going to do that again and work that through, because maybe even that is like, okay, well, where do I start with the analysis of that? How do I break that down? What do I need to do that? So there you go. Now it broke this task down. So identify the goal of the task, familiarize yourself with the novel, take notes of how Fitzgerald uses I mean, this is really great. And again, this makes it so much more manageable because each one of these any one of these tasks should not be overwhelming in itself. The overall project, totally get that. But each one of these should be really manageable and really bite-sized. And then you can sort of work through it at your own pace and get that momentum. And that progress will make you feel like you have that momentum to keep going. So this is a great tool called Magic To Do. And eventually you'll start to do this naturally. And you'll start to break these down like just in your head when you get certain to-dos and projects. And once we have these again, then we can start to put these in our actual to-do list, which we're going to get to in a later lesson. But just understand that first part of the methodology, simplify.